Morning, guys. Welcome back. I know this is a video right after I just posted a video, but I had something that I was thinking about this morning that I wanted to make a video about and talk about a little bit. I recently watched a video. There's a farm that's not far from me called the Reed Farm, and they are also in the Central Florida area. And you'll have to pardon my somewhat messy hair. I'm on the way to get a haircut right now. But they had a video, I believe his name is Lonnie, the guy who owns it. He had a video all about invasive plants. Like, you know, you hear that all the time. I see it all the time in different groups that I'm on social media. You know, don't plant invasive plants. Don't plant invasive plants. This plant's invasive. Get it out. Burn it. Poison it. Dig it out. Everything. You know. And he had a video about it, and he kind of, you know, I'm glad he posted it because it was kind of the same sentiment that I've had. Like, okay, I understand. You know, yeah, there are plants that will take over, and I understand the idea behind not planting invasive plants because you want what's considered native to grow, because it's what, you know, native butterflies, native bees, and other native wildlife likes to have to grow. But at the same time, to me, the line between invasive and native is a little bit blurry, because, and Lonnie brought a good point up, a lot of the stuff that we deem invasive is not, a lot of the stuff that we deem native is not necessarily native. It's just naturalized. You know, we don't know for sure how long it's been growing here. You know, it could be that it's only been growing here for about 100 years. But that's not native. You know, it's become naturalized, meaning, you know, okay, it's been here long enough, now we're just going to consider it one of our plants. But that still doesn't make it native. And I just don't get this absolute, you know, hatred towards what could be considered invasive. For example, I have cranberry hibiscus in the garden. You know, you all have seen it, and I like to grow it. I don't eat a lot of leafy stuff, but, you know, every now and then it's good to grab a leaf and eat it. It tastes good. It's like a little snack. I mean, it has that nice tart flavor. It's good. And it's a beautiful plant. You know, the dark kind of, just really dark red leaves, and then the flowers are the same thing, that really, really dark red hibiscus flower. But I remember in one of the groups that I'm in on Facebook, someone posted about cranberry hibiscus, and this one guy took it upon himself to hit the comments and just basically light everyone up for for planting cranberry hibiscus, and how it was so invasive. You know, he thought it was, you know, he planted it years ago, he thought it was something good, and he'd heard about it. Now it's taken over his entire yard, and he can't get rid of it, and all this other stuff. And, you know, he tells everybody who'll listen never to plant cranberry hibiscus. You need to just, you know, torch the stuff, get it out of here. It shouldn't be allowed to be sold in our state, and on and on and on and on and on. And people were commenting back and saying, well, you know, I picked mine and I like to eat it, and, you know, that's what. And he just wasn't having it. He wouldn't hear it. Well, you know, you should have it ripped out of your garden and all this other stuff. And it's like, first and foremost, what people do in their own yards, if it's not affecting yours, is none of your business. And that's another thing that a lot of people don't like to hear. You know, they like to think that somehow it is their business because it could potentially, and I mean potentially, be harming some sort of environment, or harming the environment in some sort of way. And the funny thing is, to me, the people that say that sort of stuff, they don't, a lot of times they don't garden, or they don't really have that much of a garden, and they plant a few flowers, and that's about it. And hey, if that's what you like to do, fine. But here's the thing. First and foremost, as I said, it's not your business. It's my yard. And if I want to plant cranberry hibiscus in my yard, I'm going to plant cranberry hibiscus in my yard, and you can't do anything about it. You can be grumpy about it, and you can comment on social media about it, but that's the extent of it. You're living a very miserable life. If that's, if it bothers you that bad, man, you're living a miserable life. Miserable life. Take that energy and create this giant garden full of native flowers, or probably I should say naturalized, because we don't know if they're native or not. But yeah, take that energy, instead of trying to somehow force people to not plant a plant that you don't like in your garden, in their garden. Instead of doing that, get off of Facebook, get off of Twitter, get off of Instagram, go out in your yard and plant this humongous native wildflower, native plant, native tree, whatever you want to do, and you'll be a lot happier, and you will, leave the world a better place. So with that first and foremost, but also a lot of the times I feel like the people who, I heard this plant was good to plant, and I put it in the ground, and now it's taken over, and I can't get rid of it, and all that, it's just everywhere. Well, because you let it go everywhere. For example, when the very first cranberry hibiscus plant that I got, I planted it. I don't know if people have paid attention, but there's a spot in my yard. I've got 2 Norfolk pine trees, and I had planted they were much smaller than they are now. I planted the cranberry hibiscus right in between them, and it did okay. It died back in the winter. I didn't really know much about cranberry hibiscus at the time, so I thought, okay, well, the winter killed it, it's gone, I'll have to go buy another one. Nope, here it comes again, and it came back up in the same place. Well, it was kind of struggling because the Norfolk pine trees were getting bigger and kind of shading it out, and it was just having a little bit of trouble. So, and I wanted to plant something more perennial in my garden, and I think this was either last year or the year before. So I dug it out where it was, in between the pine trees, and I dug out the new growth. It was small still, and I planted it where it was in my yard, where people have seen it in my videos. And it grew very well, grew very large. But again, winter came. Last winter we had, I believe, at least 3, if not 4 nights below freezing, and it died. And so before winter came, I knew it wasn't going to survive, so I cut it back, and I took some of the canes, and I put them in my lasagna garden. I took some of the other canes, and I put them, I dropped them around my big garden, and then said, best of luck to you. If you survive, you survive. And it did not. The big plant did not. Well, I had last fall, not long after I had made the lasagna garden, I started having cranberry hibiscus. I could tell it was starting to pop up in my lasagna garden. And I said, I don't want this in my lasagna garden, so I pulled it out. I have no more cranberry hibiscus in my lasagna garden. It's gone. There's nothing in there. In my big garden, as I showed on a video that I recorded the other day, I think it was Tuesday, I have cranberry hibiscus popping up on the other side of my garden, that it must have been where I had chopped it and just dropped it there, and it worked its way into the soil, and then with the mulch on top and all that stuff, it rooted and it's coming up again. Now the big plant that they came from is dead. I pulled it out of the ground this morning because it looked like it was dead, but I wasn't sure. I was giving it time to see if it was going to come back. I checked it this morning and it was brittle and dry, and so I just pulled it out. So the other cranberry hibiscus that had popped up that you saw in the video I posted on Tuesday, I decided, and it's popped up in multiple places. There was a couple places that it was too close to other plants that I had, and so I pulled it out and I, tossed it somewhere. And but then there's some places that I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna let it grow there because I like having cranberry hibiscus, and I'll keep it there. If it starts to grow and it starts to crowd something out or shade something out or something like that, I will remove it. Do you see what I'm getting at? A lot of the times, people who say that I planted X, Y, or Z and it just took over my entire garden. Now, there are plants that can do that. There really are. There are plants that can take over, if you really don't keep a close eye on them. And I think a lot of people are also burned by things like Kogan grass, which Kogan grass, unfortunately, I hate to say it, but it's here to stay. I know it's one of those, it's invasive, we got to get rid of it, but it's here to stay. You're not going to get rid of it. And people are going to absolutely destroy the soil by spraying it and doing all this other stuff to try to get rid of it. They're just going to wreck the soil, and I really hate seeing it, but what can I do? But I understand that stuff like that leaves a sour taste in your mouth, and you don't want to see that. But with a lot of times, people who say I planted X, Y, or Z and it took over my yard and now I can't get rid of it, that's because you never paid attention to it to begin with. You planted it and you left it there. You didn't do anything with it. If you saw it spreading, you didn't try to stop it. You just, oh no, it's spreading, I can't do anything, and it took over. And yeah, I'm sort of assuming this, but I think that that's a safe assumption to make, is people will plant something, they won't tend to it, they won't, monitor it and make sure, like, okay, I'm planting this, like, okay, Mexican sunflower. Mexican sunflower, if the canes lay down, it will root and it will start to grow again. I found some in my garden this morning. I did not plant them where I found them, and I didn't want them where I found them, so I pulled them out. If you keep a close eye on things, you can stop it before it becomes a problem. If you just throw stuff out, never pay attention to it, let it go, yeah, it's gonna take over. Stuff like cranberry hibiscus, Mexican sunflower. There are a lot of things that grow. Either rhizomally, which means through their roots underground, or if they are made with canes. Like another example would be like shampoo ginger. Shampoo ginger will take over. I have a friend that I have gotten some shampoo ginger from. She told me I can take as much as I want because she wants to get rid of it. It's just taking over the whole side of her house because it spreads rhizomally. But she's also found that she's tried to cut it down and just leave the stalks where they are, and they sent down roots and started growing again. Does that mean I'm not going to grow shampoo ginger? Heck no, I want shampoo ginger. But what it means is I have to keep an eye. I have to keep an eye out. Big deal. And so yeah, there are plants that will do that. Just keep an eye out on it. Don't just throw stuff out there. If you know you've got a plant that can travel like that, don't just throw it out there and say, oh, okay, here, have fun. Keep an eye out on it. That doesn't mean you shouldn't grow it. Now, if you don't want it, whatever. But if you, and to the guy who's so upset about the cranberry hibiscus, if you don't like cranberry hibiscus, I don't care. Don't grow it. But there are people like me who I do like it, I do want it, and I keep an eye on it wherever it is and make sure that it's not going to take over my garden. If it seems like it's taking over, I pull it out. Look, you can tell when there's cranberry hibiscus coming up. You know what it is as soon as it comes up as a sprout. You know what it is. If I see that, I pull it out. If I don't want it there. Same thing, like I said, with the Mexican sunflower. If it's in a place I don't want it there, I pull it out. This looks like Mexican sunflower coming up. I don't want it there. It's too close to whatever. So I pull it out. You know another plant that does that? Cassava. If you take cassava, it doesn't always do it, but it can. If you take cassava canes and just lay them down, if you cut it and then just lay it down, there's a good chance it's going to send roots down and start growing again. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't grow it. And another, kind of the final thing here, other than it's your yard, your garden, you decide what to plant, nobody else. But I want someone to name something that we know for a fact is native, in the sense that it's been here for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. And also, everyone wants to plant these, they want a vegetable garden, they want their cucumbers and their carrots and their tomatoes, and none of that is native. Absolutely none of it. Unless you're growing in Florida, unless you're growing Everglades tomatoes, which we assume is a native plant. Unless you're growing Seminole pumpkin, which we assume is a native plant. I don't know if it truly is native, or if it's just that the Seminole Indians grew it. We assume that it's native. We don't know how long it's been here exactly. Unless you're growing that, unless you're growing maypop, unless you're growing, chickweed, unless you're growing all this other stuff. You're not growing native stuff. If you're growing, your Better Boy tomatoes and your, gherkins and your, eggplants and all that, you're not growing natives. If you're growing, I don't care what it is, you're not growing native plants. So, yeah, you can get I have a really good book about eating, wild edibles. Unless that's what you're doing and nothing else, you're growing non-native species. And I know what people will say, yes, but they don't take over. They're not invasive. They may not be native, but they're not invasive. Okay, fine. That is, that's true. It's rare that you see cucumber plants just taking over and now your whole forest is overgrown with cucumber plants. I personally would love that, but hey, that's just me. But, nothing that you grow, I would be willing to bet that majority, 99% of what gardeners grow is not native. It is not native. So what? Are we going to just stop having vegetable gardens? Some of the best crops to grow here are not native. They're from Africa. They're from Asia. Are we going to stop having gardens here? Is that what we're going to do? Is that the solution to this? Just stop growing things because it's not native. It's going to ruin our ecosystem. No. And by the way, non-native plants can get here without human help. We have migratory insects, migratory birds, stuff like that come from other countries, whether it's island nations or Mexico or something like that. They can carry in their stool or on their bodies seed for non-native plants. And when they get here, it gets sprinkled around, distributed in droppings, all that sort of stuff. And guess what? Now we have a non-native plant here. If you want to know some of the plants that have taken over and are really a problem, such as Kogan grass, how did it get here? it wasn't their backyard gardener. Just do some research into that. You'll see who really is the culprit most of the time. So, yeah, I just stop this nonsense about, only plant native plants and all that. Just stop. If that's what you want to do, go for it. But if you're going to plant plants that you know can wander, just keep an eye on them. Be a good steward and keep an eye on them and make sure they don't take over. Pull them out where you don't want them. Get rid of them. You can compost it. You can burn it. You can, stick it in water and let it become compost tea. Anything. It's not that hard, guys. So, channel the anger that you have into going out and actually doing something with it. And that's all I got to say today. I appreciate everyone watching. Thanks to Lonnie at the Reed Farm for bringing this topic up. When I saw that video, I was just sitting there going, thank you. Thank you. This whole non-native thing really just drives me insane. So that's it. I will see you all later. Yeah, don't forget to comment. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And take care.